On May 22nd, 2022, I did a video titled Burnley are relegated from the Premier League. On the final game of the season, Burnley and Leeds were head to head in a relegation battle. All Burnley had to do was win against Newcastle at home and they secured survival. However, if they fail to win and they lose, then Leeds, with a win away at Brentford, can snatch survival. Burnley went on to lose 2-1 and Leeds went on to win 2-1. This is what I said in that video. For the Leeds fans watching this, that feeling that you have right now, that feeling that you feel, that you felt yesterday, or what you may still feel now, that feeling of pride, of relief, of elation, remember that. Remember that. Because that's sport. That's what football's all about. Right now it's our moment to go down. Next year it could be Leeds. This time it's just our turn. Football is a beautiful sport, and how things can turn so dramatically, so quickly. If it's from being reactionary, if it's from being realistic, if it's from being too cautious. It is an incredible sport, and in today's video I'll be going into what has happened to Leeds United. Why has a club with an undeniable, large, passionate fan base that spent so many years in the second and third tier of English football finally rise back up to the Premier League, having 9th place finish in their first season and are looking like they are facing back-to-back relegation battles and not learning from their mistakes? Who is it that we should point at for the blame? Is it the managers in Jesse Marsh, or even Marcelo Bielsa? Is it Victor Orta? Is it Andrea Radrizzani? Or is it the players themselves? Tell me down below in the comments. If you guys do enjoy, then please do subscribe. Thank you for the incredible support. Let's try to hit 2,500 likes and let's get into the video. Leeds United has been many things in the last 2-3 decades, and the one thing that they absolutely have not been is consistent. The world of Leeds United is at 100 miles per hour. If this goes to managers, if it goes to ownership, if it goes to financial stability, you can never guess what you are going to get with Leeds. Now, I'll be honest, I could do a full-blown documentary that expands out for 2-3 hours about Leeds when it comes to the last 2-3 decades. However, I've not got the time for that, I'll be honest. This is specifically going into their Premier League years, from the rise of Bielsa, their first season, the collapse of Bielsa in the second season, bringing in Jesse Marsh, the survival third year, not learn from any of their mistakes. There has been a lot of mistakes along the way, and many fingers are being pointed in multiple directions, and that is where I want to take this video. So let's start off with, how did it begin? Leeds United, entering their 2019-2020 year, were beginning their 16th year outside of the top flight, after being relegated back in 2004. There were many reasons for this, and this could be an entire video on itself. However, Leeds had serious financial problems. After just avoiding relegation in the previous season, another season of struggle was on the cards, who reached debts of over 100 million. Only 4 years previously, Leeds United were in the semi-finals of the Champions League. Much of the debt was created by transfer fees and player wages. The club tasting that taste of success in Europe, trying all they can possibly do to reach back to the promised land by any means necessary. Leeds failed to qualify for the Champions League, which had drastic circumstances for the club. The fees and player wages that was contracted to many of their players were solely based on the fact that they would be playing Champions League football, and without that cash flow coming in, led to dire straits, therefore coining the term doing a Leeds. In the 2000s or 2010s, this was a term that was coined by many clubs that had a similar circumstance, after Leeds not only getting relegated to the second division, but also voluntarily entering administration and then dropping down to the third tier of English football for the first time in their history. However, in 2011, they found hope and became a relatively stable team in the Championship. We can talk about the Solino era, however, that in itself can be its very own video. On the 15th of June 2018, Marcelo Bielsa was announced as Leeds manager. Now, the topic of Marcelo Bielsa for Leeds fans, even still now, is, I don't even know how to describe it. The best way to describe it is intimately nostalgic. When speaking to any Leeds fans during the years of 2018 to 2021, they can only speak to you as if they're speaking to a long-lost grandfather that taught them about how to live and be a man. All the great stories and the accomplishments and the feats that they managed to challenge and succeed. During all my time being a football fan, I've never seen a fan base be so committed behind the culture of a single man, and that is Marcelo Bielsa. Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool comes pretty close, but it was different. So different with Bielsa and Leeds. And therefore, it does give me some great sympathy for Jesse Marsh, because simply put, there's no chance that he would be able to replicate the same feeling that Leeds felt about Bielsa. Every mistake, every loss, every single thing that he does will always be in comparison to him, and that if the feeling and the culture is nowhere near similar, then he will always be fighting an uphill battle. Now, that is not to say that Leeds fans did not give him a chance. They did. And when speaking to most Leeds fans, they all have a very similar feeling. I felt like they all really wanted him to succeed. They really wanted it to go well, because he spoke well, he came across well. However, almost a little bit too happy at times. And by that, I mean, in his press conferences, you never felt like he really understood the problems that was at hand at Leeds and the situation that they found themselves in. Almost like they were too good or too big to go down. This is one critique that has gone at the owners. At the start of the 22-23 season, the current owner of Leeds United, Andrea Radrizzani, said the following: "I don't have any doubt that we'll avoid a situation similar to last season. It is impossible to get relegated." The owner of the football club, after selling two of their main key players in Calvin Phillips and Rafinha, saying in an interview that it is impossible to get relegated, set some red flags in the minds of some Leeds supporters. Some questioning them and saying that they are being naive and not understanding the challenge that they really have ahead of them. Since that quote from the ownership, Leeds are currently 19th in the Premier League, winning 4 games all season, the least won by any team in the Premier League. Jesse Marsh was backed by the board completely, and to transition from Marcelo Bielsa's very specific brand of football and transition to the Red Bull model, similar to RB Leipzig or RB Salzburg that he previously managed at. Both of these two style of plays cannot be any different. Jesse Marsh football being incredibly narrow, wing play being very minimal in his tactics, and aiming more and compacting the pitch as much as possible to be very effective in transitions and counter-pressing style of play. Changes had to be made, and drastically, hence why they spent 128 million on Jesse Marsh within the summer and January transfer window, and selling 2 of their star players in Rafinha and Calvin Phillips. So what did Bielsa do? How did he turn a side which were underperforming in club size, I guess you could say, who were a relatively mid-table championship side, and turn them into not only championship winners but also a 9th place finish in the Premier League? Marcelo Bielsa's style of football is unique, to say the least, and the way to describe his football is, wait, just checking my notes, it says murder ball. Well, that's fun. When you speak about commitment and when you speak about players giving their entire being on the football pitch, 110% can only be compared to Bielsa. Murder Ball was a training session that was introduced at Leeds by Bielsa, with the players divided into 2 teams and compete in a match. Quite simple, but the ball is put back in play continuously. No free kicks, no throw-ins, nothing, just non-stop running and football. This means that Leeds players, in terms of their intensity on the pitch and the levels of fitness, should outmatch almost every single team that they play against, meaning that for the length of an entire game, they should be working harder and outrunning and outworking every player. And this is how Bielsa turned a mid-table team with players that, for the most part, wasn't that great, and made them so much better because of his training techniques and for giving their entire being to a man. Many players at Leeds turned into stars overnight, like the likes of Matthias Cleek, Liam Cooper, Kemar Roofe, Alioski, Even Calvin Phillips. Calvin Phillips was not the player that he was before Bielsa came in, and he completely changed him. And there's many others. Really, I can say almost every single player in that team. Stuart Dallas, Jack Harrison. In front of their very own eyes, Leeds fans were seeing their team, who all in all was not that great, turn into a giant within a couple of weeks. The style of play was entertaining. The intensity, the attacking prowess, relentless is what I will use. Leeds United went on to win the championship in the 2019-2020 season with a bit of a scare when it comes to COVID. After 16 years, Leeds were promoted back to the Premier League. Bielsa's rise with Leeds United continued to the next season in the Premier League. Leeds were the entertainers in the division because each game that they play, you had no idea what was going to happen. In their first 2 games in the Premier League, they lost away at Liverpool 4-3, and then in the next game, they won at home to Fulham 4-3. With Leeds games, it felt like it can only go 2 ways. Either they get battered like they did at the start of the year by Leicester and Palace, 4-1 both games, or they went on to absolutely romp the other team by beating West Brom 5-0 away or beating Newcastle 5-2. Completely gung-ho. And what was also interesting is the fact that with most managers at a top elite level, typically they're quite proactive with the tactics and they change and adjust based on the opposition. Bielsa was different, and to critique him potentially was either naive or stubborn of his tactics. Would never change his philosophy and his style of play no matter what. So either it worked or it didn't work, and that was the plan A, Plan B and Plan C. However, in the first season it worked and they got some great results. For example, beating Manchester City at the Etihad 2-1, ending the season fantastically. And looking back with some Leeds fans, this was maybe the worst thing to happen for them, because going into the next season, they were quite cautious to improve the squad, only signing 3 players all season in Dan James, Junior Firpo and Christopher Klassen. Technically 4 because they did end up buying Harrison on a permanent as he was initially on loan. One critique of Bielsa was the fact that he always seemed to want a very small squad. Now, where to point fingers in a situation, people can point at the board for not backing him. However, if rumours came out that Bielsa didn't want any other players, then the finger would then have to point to Bielsa. That is why when continuing into the 21-22 season, they continued onwards like they usually do, losing in the first game of the season 5-1 away to Manchester United, and entering the turn of the year, they only won 3 games all season, to Palace and to Norwich alongside Watford, and taking some drubbings in this time period, including a 4-1 loss to Arsenal at home, a 7-0 loss away at City. It only went from bad to worse. Bielsa was still stubborn in his tactics, potentially because of the style of football that he played. His squad was picking up injuries at an alarming rate. For example, looking back at that Leeds Arsenal game, that 4-1 loss, they had an incredibly poor team because of their injury problems. This led to more challenges towards Bielsa, and despite having a team which was not that good to play the style of football that he wanted, he continued onwards. Because of his intense style of play and the intensity in his training techniques, in some ways, he worked his players down to their bones almost. And after conceding 14 goals in a matter of 3 games, between Leeds losing 4-2 to Man United, 6-0 to Liverpool and 4-0 to Spurs, the day came that Bielsa was sacked from Leeds United. Jesse Marsh came in the day afterwards, a completely new style play, as we've already said. He spoke really well and seemed to really get a decent grip of his players when it comes to motivating them, and at this stage of the season, motivation was all they needed, and the first thing is to really reassure that defence. Despite some wobbles across the way, they became resurgent, ending up claiming survival in the final day against Brentford at Burnley's expense. After facing the scare of their lives, because Leeds fans, the last thing that they would want is to wait 16 years to get the moment back in the Premier League and to have it be wasted away just like that, and to look back at the Premier League as a pipe dream. Surely they would learn their lessons and kick on. Jesse Marsh was backed in the market by signing a ton of players from RB Leipzig and RB Salzburg, and players with links to Jesse Marsh as well, including a large amount of American influence. Including that as well, rumours of the 49ers gaining a larger majority share of the football club by having a bigger takeover in the future being planned. This was a very important time for Leeds to at least be stable. The 49ers, which is an NFL team over in America, the potential investment into Leeds would be huge, which only makes the challenge on hand with the risk of another relegation battle being all the more problematic. They started the season in promising fashion, beating Wolves at home and Chelsea 3-0 in the first 3 games. However, went on to not win in the next 9 and faced the pressure for Jesse Marsh, in which he gained an incredible win away at Anfield. And alongside that, despite going behind against Bournemouth at home, being 3-1 down, they came back from behind to win 4-3. And this is when we look at the boardroom. Victor Orta is the director of football, who is very vocal to say the least. The board was facing major critique, and when Leeds came back from behind to beat Bournemouth 4-3, an image of Victor Orta shushing his own fans and cupping his ears was found. The director of football shushing his own fans for critiquing him. Yeah, I can't really see that going down at any club, never mind Leeds United. However, despite how great those victories were for Leeds, since the 5th of November till the time of recording, they have not won a game in the Premier League. 10 games in a row without a win, with 6 losses and 4 draws. Jesse Marsh was sacked after a 1-0 loss away on the road at Nottingham Forest. I remember one image from that game, and one thing that kind of stuck to me and was caught up by quite a lot of Leeds fans. When the camera panned over to the bench, you see many of their players on the bench snuggled up in blankets with their feet up when they are in the middle of a relegation dogfight. Now, I must say I may be reaching at straws here. However, for example, when Burnley were in a relegation fight, if I saw our players with their feet up, snuggled in blankets, it would rub me the wrong way too, as it feels like they didn't take it seriously and really understand the gravity of the situation that they were under. If Leeds United gets relegated from the Premier League this season, it could be a disaster. The amount of players that they have, the wages, many of them will leave immediately, and they would have to reset all over again. Alongside that, the takeover potentially from the 49ers would also potentially collapse too. Leeds fans week by week are slowly turning on the board and claiming them to be incompetent of running a football club the size of Leeds United. For example, their current majority owner in Vizeh wanted to sign the ex-Ajax manager Schroeder. It was consistently documented online that he was their man. However, when the news came to light on social media, very swiftly the communication between Schroeder and the club fall apart. Radrazani in the Leeds community is very well known to be very active on social media, especially Twitter, and people believe that he changed his opinion on signing the next manager for Leeds United solely based on the backlash that he received online. Now, this could have many ways to see it. You may see it as, oh, well, he cares about the opinions and the thoughts of the supporters of the club, which you could see it that way. However, others see it as incompetence. He isn't strong-willed in his own beliefs, that he is changing his opinions on the football club for the betterment of the club and changing it on a whim based on what he receives from the fan base. If you are a owner of a football club, you should be strong-willed with your decision making and whatever you say goes. So to see this happen with the owner of a football club is worrying to say the least. Leeds United hire Javi Gracia as the new manager of Leeds United. Tell me down below your thoughts on the situation. Do you think Leeds can stay up? And also, do you think that the current ownership of Radrazani or the director of football of Victor Orta are up to the job? I hope you guys do enjoy. I hope this reaches many Leeds fans as well. I tried my best to research as much as I can, as I know that this is quite a sensitive topic. I do know many Leeds fans, and yeah, you lot are incredibly passionate to say the least. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. It does mean the world for you guys' support. Let's try to hit 2,500 likes, and I'll see you guys next time for another video. Thank you for your time.